7. Happiness is prohibited. North Korea, also known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, is a country where even happiness can be banned. In 2021, from December 17th to December 28th, North Koreans were forbidden from smiling, shopping, or even raising a glass in celebration. This 11-day mourning period was established to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the passing of the country's former leader, Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il held control over North Korea from 1994 to 2011, but on December 17, 2011, he passed away from a heart attack at the age of 69, with his youngest son, Kim Jong-un, taking up the mantle as his successor. During this 11-day mourning period, all forms of leisure and celebration were strictly prohibited, a chilling reminder of the extent to which the North Korean governments control the lives of its citizens. Defying this ban carried severe consequences, including arrest, as is the case every year. The restrictions during this period are so severe that not even a family member's death is an acceptable reason to show emotions or break the solemn atmosphere. Loud expressions of grief aren't allowed, and any burials must be postponed until after the mourning period. Even personal milestones such as birthdays aren't spared from these restrictions if they happen to fall within the mourning period. The government enforces this somber observance rigorously. For the past decade, Kim Jong-un has paid his respects to his late father at a memorial where Kim Jong-il's embalmed body, along with that of Kim Il-sung, is on display. Significant anniversaries like the 1st and 5th have seen Kim Jong-un assemble national meetings to honor his father's memory. However, for the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-il's passing, the mourning period was extended to 11 days, adding an extra day of somber reflection for the North Korean people. But people aren't perfect, and sometimes they can make mistakes, if you can even call being happy a mistake. A picture posted to cryptome.org that was taken during this time in 2021 shows 3 girls dressed in military uniforms sitting on a sidewalk, and one of them is showing an outward display of happiness. Her eyes are narrowed and her mouth is wide open as if she's amused by something, while the other girls seem to have a more somber composure. It's no secret that this photo is highly forbidden by the authorities in North Korea. And if this woman was caught in the act, she likely would have been arrested. 6. A woman in a sea of soldiers. Just like any other country, North Korea has laws that it expects tourists and other visitors to follow. But North Korea is a lot more strict than other places. Included among the laundry list of illegal activities in the country is taking pictures of anything pertaining to the military. Taking pictures of soldiers, military installations, and vehicles in North Korea is strictly prohibited. And this rule even extends to construction sites, which are often bustling with military activity. There are exceptions to this rule, however, where you are permitted to take pictures alongside North Korean soldiers. For example, this can be done at the Korean Demilitarized Zone. One particular photo taken by photographer Eric Laforgue shows a sea of male soldiers, highlighted by one woman in the middle. The men are all dressed in their military uniforms, complete with the top cover, while the woman at the center of the image is dressed in a pink flowy dress. And while it's illegal to capture pictures of the North Korean military, it's likely that Laforgue was allowed to do so given the sheer amount of soldiers in the photo. He must have been at a site that allowed for photography, because, as we mentioned previously, North Koreans are rather strict when it comes to enforcing their laws. 5. Computers with no electricity. North Korea's primary sources of power are coal and hydro, attributed to the plans put in place by Kim Jong-il, who oversaw the construction of massive hydroelectric power stations all across the country. But, according to the CIA World Factbook, only 26% of the population of North Korea had access to electricity in 2019. And having knowledge of this fact makes this picture taken by Eric Laforgue all the more depressing. In this photo, you can see a woman sitting at a desk in front of a computer and keyboard. She looks as though she's typing, but the screen is black and devoid of power. When you visit North Korea, the guides appointed to you will be happy to show you the lifestyles of the families living in the country. They like it if you take pictures of the computers that can be found in their homes. However, if you take a photo showing that there's no electricity hooked up to these computers, the guides will ask you to delete it. This image taken by Laforgue is extremely forbidden in North Korea, and it's a miracle that it survived throughout his entire trip to the country. It's now posted online for the whole world to see, a testament to the families living in North Korea without access to basic necessities like power. 4. Grass and tree bark. Severe food shortages in North Korea, compounded by government policies, have pushed thousands to resort to consuming so-called wild foods, including grass and tree bark, in a desperate bid to fend off starvation, according to reports collected by Amnesty International in a 2010 study. These testimonies paint a grim picture of life in North Korea, where hunger and malnutrition have become widespread problems. Hwang, a young man from the Hwasong North Hamgyong province, endured a life of homelessness from the age of 9, leaving him no choice but to forage for wild foods to survive. These wild foods, however, often prove to be poisonous, causing severe health issues. Many other North Koreans, in a bid to quell their hunger, have been driven to consume wild foods that lack nutritional value. Amnesty International's report, The Crumbling State of Healthcare in North Korea, revealed that the North Korean government has been unable to provide for its people's basic nutritional needs. This has resulted in a desperate situation where North Koreans have resorted to eating indigestible or even toxic plants. This, of course, has led to hunger and illness among the most vulnerable members of society. North Koreans have even begun to incorporate grass and roots into their existing food, mixing them with staple foods to make their meager rations last longer. This approach, while offering some temporary relief from hunger, brings little nutritional value and can lead to digestive issues. The North Korean government, in the early to mid-1990s, encouraged the population to find alternative food sources, such as roots, grasses, and stalks. Food rations, which were already insufficient, were further reduced or suspended, pushing people to rely on wild foods. By 1996, during the height of the 1990s famine, it's estimated that wild foods made up around 30% of the North Korean diet. North Korea continued to grapple with food insecurity, experiencing severe food crises in the mid-2000s. During this time, consumption of wild foods increased significantly, and thousands were believed to have died from starvation. And in February of that same year, a botched currency re-evaluation had devastating consequences for the people of North Korea. This photo, taken by Eric Laforgue, shows a man gathering grass from a park, likely because he couldn't get food elsewhere. It's a grim reminder of what North Koreans go through on a daily basis. And while the situation may have evolved since 2010, these stories of individuals like Hwang highlight the persistent challenges associated with food scarcity in North Korea. 3. Fashion police. In North Korea, fashion takes on an unexpected role as a political statement. With over 25 million people living under the rule of the totalitarian regime led by the supreme leader Kim Jong-un, fashion choices aren't merely about style, they're a matter of state control. The North Korean regime, now led by the third-generation dictator, enforces a strict code of conduct. Citizens have limited access to information about freedom of speech, while the government strives to regulate every aspect of their lives. Deviating from the regime's rigid guidelines can lead to severe consequences, including torture, forced labor, or even execution. Internet access is restricted, foreign postal mail is a rarity, and international phone calls are a luxury beyond reach. And while fashion may not be the first thing that comes to mind in discussions of North Korean repression, it is, in fact, one of the most rigorously controlled aspects of life in the country. The regime prohibits various forms of self-expression through clothing, such as skimpy attire, women's trousers, sun hats, exotic garments, or even the use of red lipstick and cosmetics. The North Korean regime, like other totalitarian governments, insists on uniformity in every conceivable aspect. They dictate what songs people should sing and what movies they should watch. And according to North Korean defector Yeonmi Park, another way of enforcing this conformity is by regulating appearance. The regime enforces a uniform look to suppress individuality and prevent people from expressing themselves. North Korea even has its own fashion police, known as the Gayuchandai, who monitor pedestrians to ensure that everyone adheres to the government's standards of appearance. Although there have been reports of some relaxation in dress code restrictions in recent years, the rules remain vague and not clearly defined. Nonetheless, violating these appearance guidelines can lead to public humiliation, forced labor, fines, and other forms of punishment. One photo taken by Eric Lefort proves just how strict the rule is. In the image, a man and woman can be seen. The man is smiling at the camera, while the woman is attempting to straighten the man's shirt in accordance with the law. According to Lefort, the picture shows students who were dancing at a park. But when he asked to snap a photo, the woman couldn't help but fix the man's attire. This is likely a result of the conditioning the country subjected its citizens to over the years. In a country where conformity is the norm, fashion serves as both a means of control and resistance, exemplifying the extraordinary extent to which the North Korean government exerts its authority over its people. 2. Empty roads. It's difficult to imagine living in a place that has little to no cars filling up the streets of a city. But in North Korea, most people are unable to own their own vehicles. The country's market for cars is extremely small. It's so small, in fact, that in 2003, only 314 cars were produced by Pyeonghwa Motors, which was founded in the seaport town of Nampo in the year 2000. As a branch of the national economy, North Korea's automotive industry has a much lower production rate than that of South Korea. Instead of prioritizing transportation of the country's citizens, North Korea's motor vehicle production is focused on industrial and military goals, including construction. But in truth, any information about the country's automotive industry is hard to come by. Very few private citizens in North Korea own their own cars. Such a small percentage of people own vehicles that it's actually uncommon for the streets to ever be busy in the country. And this is made evident by this picture, taken by photographer Eric Lefort. According to him, cars have just recently become more widespread in Pyongyang, so people are still getting used to seeing them. The photo shows a relatively empty street with only 2 cars traveling in opposite directions. But it's not the vehicles in the picture that should stand out. In the middle of the street is a young boy, who can't be older than 3 years old, standing on the right side of one of the passing cars. He's so close to the vehicle that if he wanted to, the boy could likely reach out and touch it. Kids in North Korea often play in the main avenues of streets since they're typically devoid of activity. But now, with the automotive industry on the rise in the country, they'll have to find other places to entertain themselves. Hopefully places that are safer than the middle of the road. 1. Sleepy officials. As we've mentioned before, North Korea doesn't mess around when it comes to its military. And the one thing that's a huge no-no in the country is showing officials in a bad light. This photo, taken by, you guessed it, Eric Lefort, is extremely forbidden in North Korea. The image shows a man dressed in a nice suit sitting in a Christian church. But instead of listening to whatever sermon is being given, the man's dozing off, barely able to keep his eyes open. It's not hard to believe that the North Korean government would be a little irritated to find pictures of their officials looking soft. But this man was at a church. He clearly wasn't on the job. It doesn't matter though. If this photo began circulating in the country, it's likely that this sleeping man would have been fired from his position, or maybe even worse. North Korea wants to appear strong to outsiders, so these types of pictures are strictly forbidden. If you were given the opportunity, would you travel to North Korea? Or would you be too frightened that you'd forget one of the country's many laws and get stuck in a North Korean prison? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.